You know, when you think about receiving a map, like a literal map of the entire universe,
Yeah.
you'd probably expect the person handing it to you to be pretty high up on the cosmic org chart.
Right, yeah, like a deity or something.
Exactly. A deity, an enlightened master. I mean, someone glowing at the very least, right? If someone holds the actual blueprints to existence, the assumption is that they are the architect or, at least the general manager.
Or perhaps the landlord of the cosmos. Our historical expectations for spiritual visionaries are just, they're so steeped in grandeur. We look for burning bushes and mountaintop revelations.
Yeah, figures bathed in celestial light demanding reverence.
Exactly.
Which makes today's subject so incredibly jarring. What if the person holding that universal map looks you right in the eye and says, "Don't look at me, I'm just the door knocker"?
Yeah, it's quite the pivot.
Welcome to today's deep dive.
Mhm.
We are taking you on a journey into a single, truly fascinating text today. It's a translated excerpt from a work titled, "I Am Just a Spiritual Guide," by a figure known as Shufeng.
And our mission today is to explore a very specific, very strange intersection found within this text. We're going to analyze how unconventional cosmology, radical personal accountability, and, believe it or not, extreme earthly ambition all kind of crash into each other in his philosophy.
That's wild.
It really is. It's this ideological architecture that blends elements of Christianity, Buddhism, and surprisingly environmental engineering.
It's a total wild ride.
Yeah.
And to be clear right up front, our goal here isn't to validate these spiritual claims, nor is it to debunk them. We are simply putting on our explorer hats to analyze the world this text builds because the mechanics of how it's constructed are just incredibly compelling.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the inciting incident for all of this is not, a meditation retreat or a pilgrimage. It's a car crash.
Right, yes. The text begins with Hu Feng explaining that what he calls a peculiar car accident is what violently opened a radiant, colorful door for him.
A literal door.
A literal door, yeah. And through this door, he was granted what he describes as a clear understanding of the structure of the universe, and specifically the different hierarchical levels of life within it.
He literally claims to hold a clear map of those hierarchical levels. And, I mean, that sounds like the ultimate cosmic promotion, doesn't it? You get the map, you are now the boss.
You'd think so.
But he emphatically rejects the idea that he's a god or a Buddha. He says any mindset that deifies him leads to superstition, which he explicitly labels as extremely dangerous.
Yeah, he goes out of his way to aggressively lower his own status. He calls himself a mere spiritual guide, an imperial envoy who is just visiting the human world temporarily.
Right.
And he uses this really striking metaphor where he says his ultimate honor is just being able to wash the greatest creator's footstool.
Washing the footstool. I mean, he draws very sharp lines between himself and recognized religious figures, too. He says Jesus is the true savior, the one who actually harvests the crops.
While Swefeng is just the assistant?
Just the assistant. And he says he understands the highest principles of Buddhism and that his heart resonates with Shakyamuni, the historical Buddha. But he still maintains he's just a guide.
Just a guide.
And his compensation for this gig, this is my favorite part. He says his reward has already been given. When he's done, he gets to retire to a very specific location.
Baritia Island.
Yes. Baritia Island in the Celestial Islands continent.
It is not some vague, ethereal promise of heaven. It's a highly specific cosmic retirement address.
With a name.
Exactly.
Okay.
But I look at this and I just see a massive contradiction. On one hand, he's saying, I am absolutely not a god, don't worship me, I'm just a door knocker.
Right.
On the other hand, he's saying, I am the imperial envoy from the universe who holds the exclusive map to the hierarchical levels of life.
It's a lot to hold at once.
Right. It's like a highly specialized corporate contractor who insists he's just a middleman, but he's literally the only guy in the world with the security clearance and the blueprints. Isn't calling yourself the universe's only door knocker still a monumental claim to authority? What's fascinating here is the rhetorical strategy. By aggressively lowering his status to that of a guide or a door knocker, Shufeng actually deflects the traditional criticisms that get leveled at spiritual leaders.
Oh, that makes sense.
Right, because when a leader claims to be a living god, they invite intense scrutiny. They risk the dangers of cult-like deification, which historically ends poorly as the leader's ego inflates.
Sure.
Shufeng actively warns against that trap. He states, if I block your view of the greatest creator, I will face severe punishment. So by removing himself from the pedestal, He totally disarms the skeptic.
He essentially says, once the door is open, focus on the creator and completely ignore the door knocker.
Exactly. But he maintains absolute informational control while doing so. He might just be the guide, but he's the one holding the map.
Right, he's the bottleneck.
He is the bottleneck for the information. It's a brilliant mechanism to maintain structural authority while completely disavowing the ego and the liabilities that usually come with being worshipped.
Wow. Okay, that raises the obvious question. If he is the guide holding the map and he controls the bottleneck, where exactly is he guiding you?
Right.
This brings us to his organization, called Lifechanyuan. And the way he describes this group is just as paradoxical as his own title.
He is incredibly strict about what Lifechanyuan is not. Like, he states it is neither a political organization nor a religious one.
So what is it?
He defines it purely as a spiritual and soul home.
A soul home. And within this home, he claims there is total equality. The only differences between the members, who are called Chanyuan Celestials, by the way, are their levels of knowledge and wisdom.
Right, there's no difference in personal dignity.
He even brings up his own self-appointed title, Hun Dun Yuan Chu, which translates to Deiform Buddha,
Yeah.
but then he waves it off, claiming that title just reflects his current wisdom level, that he's superior to anyone else.
He insists he would be deeply grateful if everyone just regarded him as a close friend or a fellow traveler. He claims there are no rights or obligations among them at all. None. As a guide, he says he has no authority to dictate what anyone does. Everything is supposed to be driven purely by the heart.
And that includes how you join. So you're telling me there is no membership card, no baptism, no initiation fee, just, what, an invisible cosmic laser grid at the front door?
Pretty much, yeah.
It is a purely spiritual entry. He says that when the cosmic waves arrive, your soul has to resonate at the exact same frequency. And if you try to fake it, you are only deceiving yourself.
He makes a direct comparison to the Bible to illustrate this mechanism. He references the Gospel of Matthew, where people plead with Jesus, saying they did many things in his name, and Jesus replies, "I do not know you."
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so Shifeng uses this to explain that outward actions, saying the right words, showing up to gatherings, donating money, mean absolutely nothing if your internal frequency isn't aligned.
He goes so far as to tell his followers that if they ever feel like Shuifeng is restraining their hearts or hands, that means he has turned into a demon, and they must resolutely abandon him.
It's intense.
It is. Imagine trying to prove to yourself that you belong in a community where the only metric is a feeling.
Yeah.
I mean, on paper, it sounds incredibly liberating, no obligations, total freedom.
Yeah.
But emotionally, how much anxiety would that give you as a follower?
A lot.
Right. The entry criteria, this cosmic wave resonance, is entirely invisible and entirely subjective. How do you ever really know if you've made the cut?
Well, that is the core psychological tension of this model. What Sweifeng has done is shift the burden of compliance entirely onto the individual.
Interesting.
Because in many traditional religious structures, you have external, quantifiable markers of belonging. You tithe 10% of your income, you attend services every Sunday, you recite a specific creed.
Sure, things you can check off a list.
Exactly. Those are visible actions you can check off a list to soothe your anxiety about belonging. Shuifeng strips every single one of those external markers away and replaces them with frequency-based spirituality.
Which creates a massive void of reassurance.
Right. It creates a high-trust, high-autonomy model on the surface, but the burden of proof rests entirely on your internal state. You can never point to a certificate of membership to prove your devotion.
You only have your own internal assurance that your soul is vibrating at the correct cosmic frequency.
Yeah, and it makes the commitment profoundly isolating in a way. You are constantly policing your own authenticity, acting as your own spiritual auditor.
But this extreme autonomy creates a glaring paradox. Because if your membership is entirely internal and there are no external obligations, who steps in when you are actually suffering in the real world?
Ah.
We've established this high autonomy, purely spiritual home. But what happens when things go wrong for these Chanyuan Celestials?
This is where the text introduces a radically strict boundary regarding spiritual compassion, and it's one that really challenges a lot of our fundamental assumptions about what a spiritual community owes its members.
Yeah, Zhuofeng lays out a very specific rule regarding hardship. He says that if a Celestial suffers hardship, specifically because of Lifechanyuan, he will call upon everyone to spare no effort to help them.
Right.
But if the hardship is unrelated to Lifechanyuan, he promises to remain completely indifferent.
He states very clearly The sins one commits must be borne by oneself, and the bitter fruits one sows must be eaten by oneself.
Yeah.
He explicitly refuses to suffer or endure hardship on anyone's behalf, stating that doing so would go against the Tao.
He categorizes people to justify this too. He says the crops of Jesus belong to Jesus. The crops of Satan belong to Satan, and matters of the dead should be handled by the dead.
Yeah.
And then there's this incredibly chilling quote about a hypothetical global disaster. He says, if a great catastrophe were to occur, I would only call the ripe grains into Lifechanyuan. Those who do not enter are unrelated to me. Even if I witness their suffering, I will remain unmoved.
That stark indifference is the logical endpoint of his philosophy.
Wait, so he's basically weaponizing the concept of karma to absolve himself of leadership liabilities. Because this feels so completely counterintuitive to everything we are taught to expect from a spiritual leader.
It does.
Most spiritual texts lean heavily into infinite, unconditional love. I mean, the ideal is the martyr, the savior who takes on the suffering of the masses.
Right, the person who carries the burden.
Exactly. But Suifeng is practicing spiritual triage. It's a staggering irony. He's willing to clean the cosmic house by washing the creator's footstool. But if a follower gets hurt in their daily life, he treats their suffering like a spiritual immune response. He won't give you medicine because you need to build the antibodies yourself.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it actually makes perfect sense within the ideological architecture he's built, even if it shocks our Western sensibilities.
Okay, how so?
What Suifeng is doing is synthesizing the Eastern concept of karma with extremely rigid, modern personal boundaries. In the classical understanding of karma, cause and effect are absolute universal laws. You eat the bitter fruits you sow because that is how the universe maintains balance.
So interfering with that suffering would actually be harming the follower in the long run.
Exactly. If a spiritual leader steps in and magically removes your suffering, they are essentially short-circuiting the universe's mechanism for your soul's growth.
Oh, I see.
That's precisely why he says taking on someone's suffering would go against the Tao, the natural order of things. He is challenging your inherent assumption that a spiritual guide's job is to be an infinitely compassionate sponge for your pain.
Wow.
A guide points out the path. They don't carry you up the mountain. If you trip over a root because you weren't paying attention, that's your lesson to learn. He manages the door. He does not manage your karma.
A guide points out the path, they don't carry you up the mountain. That's a harsh reality,
Yep.
but it is entirely consistent with his claim that he's just a door knocker.
Yep.
Up to this point in the text, we have a guide with a cosmic map, an invisible entry requirement based on spiritual resonance, and a very strict you reap what you sow policy on human suffering.
Right.
It all feels incredibly esoteric, happening on an ethereal, purely spiritual plane. We are miles away from the physical ground.
We are, but then the text takes a massive handbrake turn directly into the physical, practical earth in its final sections.
It really does.
Suifeng makes this sudden and aggressive pivot to demanding a scientific attitude from his followers.
He claims that true science doesn't distinguish between materialism and idealism. It just pursues truth. To give a quick refresher for those who haven't taken a philosophy class recently, materialism is the idea that the physical world is primary and matter creates thoughts.
Right.
Idealism is the idea that the mind or spirit is primary and thoughts create the physical world. Suifeng says the Chanyuan celestials don't pick a side. They're the most rational segment of humanity, possessing the most scientific minds.
He emphasizes that they have no imagined enemies. They refuse to judge the ancients by modern standards, and they don't get entangled in historical disputes or petty grievances. Their entire focus is on building the future through practical application.
Which leads to the ultimate earthly proposition of this text. Suifeng claims that Lifechanyuan has the actual, tangible capability to transform deserts and wastelands into lush oases.
Yeah, this is where it gets really concrete.
He insists this is not a grandiose lie. He says that if governments and religious organizations worldwide rationally recognize them, he will lead his followers to immediately begin greening the deserts.
Just like that.
Just like that. If they succeed in just one nation, he says, humanity will have reason to believe that they truly bring blessings. I genuinely struggle with the practicality here.
Oh, for sure.
How does a spiritual guide, who openly admitted earlier in the text that he lacks mystical methods and techniques, plan to re-engineer sand? Is this just a grandiose metaphor for bringing life to a spiritually barren world? Or are they genuinely pitching a municipal public works project to the United Nations?
This raises an important question about how fringe spiritual movements historically seek earthly legitimacy. It is highly likely he means this literally.
Really?
Literally. Yes, because throughout history, new spiritual movements often face intense skepticism, especially from state governments that view them as unpredictable, destabilizing forces. They operate on a totally different authority structure than the state, which makes governments very nervous.
Right. So how does an esoteric group prove its value to a skeptical, materialistic government that only cares about physical results?
By offering a highly tangible, utopian solution to a universally recognized massive physical problem.
Yeah.
Desertification is a real-world ecological crisis. By claiming extreme rationality and offering to solve this specific disaster, Weifeng is attempting to bridge the gap between his esoteric space map and skeptical earthly governments. But the mechanism behind how they plan to do this is what ties the whole philosophy together.
Right.
To Weifeng, environmental decay isn't just a physical problem, it is a physical manifestation of low spiritual frequency.
The environment reflects the soul of humanity.
Exactly. So raising human spiritual frequency isn't just about good vibes. To him, it is literal functional ecological engineering.
Wow.
If you align enough souls with the correct cosmic wave, the physical Earth must naturally respond by flourishing. He's essentially saying to the world's governments, you don't have to believe in the cosmic waves or the map of the universe to appreciate our landscaping.
Right. Just give us the space.
Just give us the space and our spiritual resonance will physically terraform the Earth.
Let us exist and we will turn your deserts green. He closes the text with a metaphor that perfectly encapsulates this bizarre duality between the spiritual and the physical.
It's a great metaphor.
He says that unconventional thinking can make the impossible possible, just like an ant walking seamlessly from one side of a Mobius strip to the other without obstruction.
The Mobius strip is the perfect mechanical symbol for this entire text. A Mobius strip, for anyone who hasn't seen one, is a surface with only one side and one continuous curve.
Yeah, if you take a strip of paper, give it a half twist, and tape the ends together, you create one.
Exactly. What looks like the top seamlessly becomes the bottom, and vice versa.
If you trace it with your finger, you never cross an edge or jump a gap, but suddenly you are on the underside where you started.
Right. And for Weifeng, spirit and science, the cosmic and the earthly, the invisible soul resonance and the physical sand of the desert, they aren't opposing forces. They're just 2 points on the same continuous loop.
That's so interesting.
Materialism and idealism are the same side of the paper. To him, using a spiritual map of the universe to grow physical grass in the desert isn't a contradiction. It's just walking the Mobius strip. The internal vibration naturally becomes the external oasis.
It's brilliant imagery.
Yeah.
It really is. And it brings us full circle on this journey. I mean, we started with a guy getting into a car accident and seeing a radiant door to the universe.
Yep.
We explored how he uses the door knocker persona to wield massive bottleneck authority without the typical cult-like ego or liabilities. We looked at the profound anxiety of having an invisible internal cosmic entry requirement.
That invisible laser grid.
The invisible laser grid.
Yeah.
And the harsh reality of his spiritual boundaries where he refuses to be the medicine for your karma. And finally, this wild ambition to prove their cosmic worth by functionally turning deserts green through frequency.
When you look at this text as a whole, it illustrates a fundamental human desire. You see the human attempt to synthesize the vast, unknowable universe with very practical, earthly problems.
Yeah, absolutely.
This text shows how much we crave structure. We want a literal map of the hierarchical levels of life to tell us where we belong. But simultaneously, we crave absolute freedom.
We don't want the rules.
Exactly. We want a spiritual home with no rules, no tithing, no obligations, just an invisible cosmic resonance. It's a beautifully human contradiction, packaged in a highly unconventional theology.
It really is. And it leaves me with one final thought, something for you to mull over after we wrap up here today. Let's go all the way back to Weifeng's core concept of being a mere door knocker.
Right.
Think about that in the context of your own life. When we seek out mentors, gurus, or even just life hacks and self-help books to open new doors for us, do we risk staring so hard at the door knocker that we forget to actually walk through the door?
That's a great question.
If you are constantly looking for a guide to hand you the ultimate map of the universe, are you losing the ability to navigate the territory yourself? Keep your eyes on the landscape, everyone. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.